Hi, my name is Lindsay. This is One Cat Crafting, a YouTube channel where I talk about my knitting, spinning, sewing, cross stitch, any other crafty things that I get up to. Today is Tuesday, May 12th, 2026. I thought I would pop in with a short kind of mid-month update. Weekend coming is a long weekend in Ontario. I will be taking Friday off as well for an extra long weekend, so lots of crafting time. So I'll have lots to post about for an end of month update. So far this month, I'll show you my journal spreads so far. We went out to dinner for my husband's birthday. We went to the movies to see Devil Wears Prada. And I finished reading Yesteryear, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I kept reading reviews from people talking about what a twist the movie was, the book was at the end. And it wasn't a twist to me. It was predictable, but it was still a pretty good book. I'm interested to see what Anne Hathaway does with the rights that she's purchased to turn it into a movie. In terms of crafting so far this month, I cast on a new knitting project, yet another Musselburgh hat, which will go in a gift bin with the other ones when it's finished. For this pattern, I use let me see what needle size, 3 or 3.25 millimeter. These happen to be my ChiaoGoo interchangeables. And I cast on in the manner that the pattern calls for until I have 32 stitches per segment, 4 segments total, and I find that this fits most adult size heads. Once I have increased the amount specified in the pattern for the crown increases, I knit round and round and round until I have about 10 or 11 grams of wool left. And then I do the decreases for the inside of the hat, and that gets a whole skein of fingering weight yarn out of my stash. The yarn that I'm using is Sock Obsessions yarn in a colorway called Delilah, which is an 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon skein. This is an old stash for me back to 2017 or 2018. I'm participating in Jen of the Stash Down Diaries hashtag Elder Stash Mal. The objective of that mal is to use the oldest of whatever craft supplies that you have in your collection. I think I've talked about it in every episode of this podcast that I've done so far. I have my oldest stash is from 2017 and 2018, despite having been a knitter and a cross stitcher for many years before that. So I am trying to work through my oldest stash of yarn, most of which are single one-off sort of skeins of fingering weight. And when I contribute to my stash in the future, my objective is to have less superwash merino nylon in my stash, things that are more naturally dyed, and different sorts of breeds of wool, even something blue-faced Leicester, as opposed to a superwash merino. I just want to get some sort of different yarns in my hand. When I do process fleeces and card and spin from a sheep fleece, I will not do merino. I just feel like, it's sort of everywhere, and I'd like to learn how to work with and how to process slightly more rare breeds of wool. So when I get back to spinning and processing fleeces, you'll see a lot of that in my podcast, that I tend to avoid merino. I have continued to knit very tiny bits on my Ripple bralette. So I didn't bring that in to show you because it has not grown significantly, just in the body ribbing. And cross stitch in an ongoing effort to avoid working on Come to the Garden by Teresa Kogut. I have gone on a fully finishing spree. I will pop photos up while I'm talking about all of the projects that I have recently fully finished. And I also started and finished over a 2-day period the Moon Valentine project by Bendy Stitchy Designs. So that one up last night, stuffed it with lavender, and apparently I have a newfound obsession with making sure all of my scissors have little fob things on them. So that is what my last 2 finishes have become. I've stuffed them with lavender. The one photo, I put the ribbon on. I'm really bad with any kind of spatial reasoning. I can't tell you how many boxes will fit in the back of my SUV. I can't do it. I have no idea. So when I'm putting together a sewing pattern, I knew that the right sides of the pattern and the backing fabric needed to be together, but I put the ribbon in wrong. and I really stitched it in there good the first time I did this. So when I realized I had made a mistake, I just cut the ribbon out and sewed it in on the side that I had left open for turning, which means that the front of my design, when it's sort of heads up, the flip side is upside down, which is fine. No one's going to notice that but me. They're on my fabric scissors, which normally live in my craft room. When I did my Moon Valentine, I did it wrong again, differently, not once, but twice. And this time I was like, I don't want another upside down hanging scissor fob. So I went back and ripped out the top row of the finish that I had made. I stitched it by hand because an ongoing effort to avoid come to the garden. So I ripped all that line of stitching out and I put the ribbon back in, got it right on the second or third time. I think the third time it took me. And I took a photo for reference so I don't do this again next time. I have some crafting plans coming up over the long weekend. We will be going to a concert on Sunday in Toronto, just a smaller concert, smaller venue. And I plan to spend a day making some project bags depending on how much interfacing I can get my hands on. I also have printed the copy shop size printout for Matchy Matchy Sewing Club bow boxers, and I'm going to sew a pair of those up as pajama shorts from an old fleece sheet where we had the bottom sort of wore thin, the bottom sheet. That's garbage, but the top sheet's perfectly fine. So I'm going to turn the top sheet of an old flannel set of sheets into shorts for pajamas. It's kind of a low cost, low investment project. The only thing that I'll be needing to purchase aside from having the pattern printed is some elastic for the waistband. So that's sort of a comfortable expenditure for me and a way to get me back into sewing. I haven't really done any since. It's probably been about a year since we started packing up to move and I packed up all of my machines. I'll give you a tour of my sewing machines. I have a 1950s or 60s Singer 411G. That is my main sewing machine. I also have, I believe it's a 301A. It's sort of a Featherweight's big sister. I haven't had that one serviced yet. I bought it about a year and a half ago. As far as I can tell, it runs fine, but I'd like to take new to me machines in for a checkup just to make sure I'm not doing any damage that I can't repair. I also have a modern Singer Serger, which spends most of its time in the naughty corner. But it was serviced last year, so I'm hoping that when I plug it in this year, everything is back in alignment and she doesn't give me any more sass. I also was recently gifted my great-grandmother's Singer 15. And I have not used that yet. I wanted to have a professional check the wiring on it before I plug it in. Although I'm assuming that my great-grandfather would have maintained it and he was a millwright, so he was really good with stuff like that. I choose to sew only on vintage or antique machines up until, now if I get a modern sewing machine at some point, I have my eyes set on a Juki. I like the vintage machines. I like the smell of the grease that they need. I like that if there's something wrong with them, I can take them apart and see what it is. It's not a computer chip or a programming error that I don't know how to fix myself. Obviously, there are some drawbacks. Some of my machines don't have reverse stitches, which is easy enough to work around. You just turn your fabric the other way. There's no fancy stitches. It's slightly harder to find a bobbin case that will fit in these machines, but I have a really good sewing machine repair mechanic in Whitby, Ontario. And I had one previously in Newark in Ontario. So if I have any issues with those machines that I can't fix or a part that I can't source, I have a reliable way of having those repaired and returned to me pretty quickly. What else have I been up to this month? I mentioned the finishing spree, knitting. I just don't want to cross stitch on Come to the Garden. I think my issue with it is the Mystic, I believe it's Mystic fabric by Picture This Plus is a lovely color, but the Aida fabric by them seems to shrink significantly during the dyeing process. So if I believe I'm working on an 18 count, it's essentially, to me, it's looking like a 20 plus Aida, and that is small. It's challenging for me to see, and I don't like how it crowds my stitches because I do stitch primarily with two strands. I like the finished object. I like the way that it will look on the dark blue fabric. I just don't know if I'm willing to invest more time and irritation into this project when there are other things that I would prefer to be working on. If you look at my stitching calendar for the month, I spun Come to the Garden as my next WIP right at the end of April. And so I didn't do any stitching at all until the 10th when I decided to start a new project, because I just don't want to stitch on it that bad. I would rather do nothing. Also, my personality, normally I choose my WIPs because if the wheel tells me what to do, I'm very much a like F you, I won't do what you tell me kind of crafter. I just want to make my own decisions. But one of the goals that I set for myself for this calendar year was to get Come to the Garden from 20% to 70%, which was already a significant challenge for me in the plans that I sort of loosely had. And I just don't think I want to do it. I'm thinking at this point about just cutting off the bottom of the fabric or leaving it in one piece, because with how tight this Aida weave is, I don't know that I'm going to use it for anything else. And just filing away the Roxy Flossco conversion threads that I had purchased on my Roxy Flossco ring, and just cutting my losses. I don't know. I still haven't totally decided yet, but I had to force myself to put stitches into this one this month, and I think I got 72 stitches in on the 7th. And that was all I could force myself to do. And I didn't really do any real sort of stitching until the 10th when I started something different. So I know Megan, the Seattle stitcher, I've been chatting back and forth with her on Instagram, and she's sort of having some motivation issues with this as well. I'm not sure if hers are owing to fabric, or I know she's got some health concerns happening right now. And I know that Elizabeth of Savory Stitches finished hers, I believe it was late last year. So there's enough motivation out there for me to get this finished if it's an object that I want to have on my walls, and I just don't think I want it on the walls that bad. So that might be something that I sort of unkit and take apart and never talk about again. I was cleaning up my craft room over the weekend. I mentioned that we moved in August. My goal for 2024 was to get back into the real estate market, and to have a room where my craft supplies could be stored. Excuse. Quick pause while I had a cough that I didn't need you to hear. So my goal for last year was to get back into the real estate market and have a house with the space for at least storage of my craft supplies, if not enough room for me to sit and craft. So my craft room is, it's technically a bedroom in the basement of our current row home. It happens to be the smallest room in the house, but there is enough room for me to sit in a chair down there if I want to do some sewing. So I was down there over the weekend organizing and filing away embroidery threads and hanging up some of my recently framed, fully finished objects on the wall. And I was going through some of the things that my grandmother kept right through her entire life. We lost her a few years ago. And it was an interesting progression for me to watch for the first time for me, a relative going from a house and then downsizing to a condo and then downsizing to, a bedroom in her adult child's room. And then for the couple of days that she was in hospice, choosing the things that she wanted to have with her at the end of her life. And the things that she wanted to keep but did not have immediate space for in her room were left at my mother's house. And before my mother moved to Alberta a few years ago, and after my grandmother had passed, I was sort of cleaning up everybody's belongings. There had been a catch-all corner in their basement, my books from college and stuff like that. And I came across some wedding cards and some baby shower cards that my grandmother had kept from the mid and late 50s. So I'll insert some photos of these cards that I've stumbled across in there. I chose to take them and keep them just because it meant enough to her that through all of those downsizes, she kept them. Even if there wasn't enough room in her bedroom, she kept them available. So I think at the very least, I'm going to take really good photos of everything and save the photos and then see if anybody else in my family wants the originals. I don't have any other plans for them right now, but I'll pop some up. One of them is written in Hungarian, but it's really interesting to see the different quality dry throat. The different quality of cardstock that was used on cards back in the 50s. Some of them are little tiny like tags that you would find on a modern gift bag. So I hope that you enjoy looking through those with me. I mentioned there's a long weekend coming up in Ontario this weekend, and I have a day of sewing planned. Another day will be in Toronto at a concert. I really need to start working on my Memento Mori cabinet shadow box situation. I observe my own version of All Saints Day, All Souls Day, Day of the Dead between the end of October and early November. I have plans to grow and dry my own marigold flowers for the display that I put together, which lives permanently year-round. I just move it for Day of the Dead and All Souls Day. So I want to finish getting my new Memento Mori box together. I'm going to go and print out some higher quality photos at Walmart instead of just printing them off on my printer at work. And I kind of want one small sentimental item for every person I've memorialized in there. So I'm going to have a look through things that I've kept from various family members and see what I can find to include in that box. I'll take some photos and show you if I make any progress with that over the weekend. Other than that, I'll insert maybe some cute puppy photos if I have any new. Naturally, I posted my end of April podcast on the 30th of April instead of waiting until May 1st, and my package that had been stuck at Border Customs for weeks within 24 hours was cleared and delivered today. So just 3 acquisitions, all from 123 Stitch. 2 of them were Nashville releases, and another one had just come recently into stock. I have a 32 count fat quarter of smoked salmon by Fiber on a Whim. I was expecting it to be a little bit more pink, but I will use it. I have an 1/8 of a yard of 16 count Barnwood by Picture This Plus. I've used this previously and was just replenishing what came out of my stash. And I have a 32 count fat quarter of Gothic Mauve, also by Fiber on a Whim. And they are going into filing. Seems to be the pattern for my last 2 episodes that as soon as I film and upload to Dropbox, I get some sort of acquisition to discuss. Our mailman was just here, and I have received my Hubman and Chub Girl monthly sticker subscription for the month of June. I am assuming that this book is a sort of reusable sticker paper that I can store all my extras in, which is great. That was a freebie. And I have my monthly June month headings, and this month's theme is Rainbow Llamas. So I will set up my June spread in a couple of weeks. Oh, I just realized there's my address. We will have to blur that. And I have received a McCall's pattern that I purchased on eBay. It's Easy McCall's 2648, and it is in their available plus size range. I'm planning on making a tan version of this sort of duster jacket. I'll post my inspo photo. And when I have saved up my pennies for the fabric, I will do a vlog about that project.